Good evening, everyone. When I was studying traumatology, my professor said one thing that really stood out for me, and that was we can never possibly know how we will react to trauma until trauma happens to us. We can hope to behave or react in a certain way, but unless that traumatic incident actually happens to us, we cannot know. Grant knows. And even though we will hear his story and be in awe of how he continues to navigate life as a blind person, perhaps we could consider how Grant's journey serves as a beacon for us. Because whilst we may not know how we would personally cope with such a calamitous, life-changing event, should we be struck by a trauma, we now have a lighthouse firmly embedded in rock, providing guidance, hope, and direction through fog and stormy seas, back onto terra firma. Perhaps we may find terra firma in an unknown land, but it is land nonetheless. It is such a privilege to be able to introduce my student on the advanced logotherapy course, a lighthouse to so many of us, Grant Matthews.
Hi, good evening, everyone. I'm glad I could be here this evening. Okay, I was born in the early 1970s with all my senses, oh, so I'd like to believe. When I matriculated, I did not know what I wanted to do with my life, so I did know that I did not want to do military training. I was not interested in going for military training, so I did what I could to not do that, and that got me to do an apprenticeship as an electrician, which I qualified in, and then I went to college to improve my theoretical knowledge. And while I was at college studying theory, more theory, I found employment in the manufacturing industry, and I soon got promoted to production manager. And I did that for 10 years, got married, got divorced, had a kid, and then I literally asked myself, what are you doing in suburbia? So I went to the bush and I did my diploma as a field guide. I qualified in that and started working in the tourism industry, which I did successfully for a number of years up until I got to my early 40s. And then I realized perhaps it was time to get a job with a fixed location in so-called society. So I found employment in the retail industry. For leisure and fun, I used to do things like reading. I loved reading, all different kinds of genre. I did skydiving, whitewater rafting. I used to love walking and camping in the bush. I collected plants, and yes, I thoroughly enjoyed cooking because I like eating. And then while I was working as a retail store manager, I had an incident which damaged my optical nerves, rendering me severely visually impaired or blind if you prefer. My whole life changed. I was literally pushed off the hamster wheel of life, and I didn't know what to do. I felt incredibly sorry for myself. Believe me, it was my whole life was gone. Everything was in the literal dark. And I was there for a little while, up until I came to the realization, yes, I'm entitled to feel that way. I can remain there. But in remaining there and keeping that mindset, it's not going to change anything. It's not going to improve anything at all. One of For every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. And how I apply that to my life is, right, that has happened, some negative, but what is good to learn out of this? Time to open your mind, look for the good, the positive, focus on that, and let the rest go, which is what I chose to do, because I literally only had two choices. I could remain focused on what I felt I'd lost and keep myself in a really negative and bad space, or I could look for new opportunities, what I could get out of it. Many people before me have excelled, many people after me will. And my choice as to how I proceed with my life is entirely up to me. And so I knew I had to move on. I looked for and found a college which would teach me how to use a computer again as a blind person, which is in Pretoria. So I moved back to Centurion, where my mother is, and with a large amount of shock and horror, I realized that my own family had given away, thrown away, sold, or destroyed everything I'd ever worked for. Everything I cherished was gone. And that was what hurt was that was after I'd helped them. I did what I could. I used to do home renovations. I gave them motor cars. I used to buy food, all sorts of things. However, I can't change that. And that's just the way it is. So I went to the college and I'm really grateful to the Optima College because if it wasn't for them, I would not have been introduced to the blind community who taught me so much. And there were a great many wonderful examples. And while staying at my mother, I realized she was doing odd and strange things and was incredibly forgetful. So I contacted a doctor, made an appointment, took her to a doctor who referred us to a neurologist, and he ran a battery of tests for her. And it came back that my mother's got dementia. So I thought, oh, life, what is this all about? You know, it's enough becoming blind. I got to like learn to live again. And I this extra dimension, I mean, what's this all for? And I literally questioned life. I questioned my value as a person because I'd lost everything, literally everything. And now I've got this. So yeah, I decided, okay, well, life's a new challenge. Look for and find other things to do. In the year that I was waiting to get into the Optima College, I joined Toastmasters because I was never comfortable in public speaking and compiling and delivering speeches. And it was through them I found sources of inspiration in places I never imagined. And to me, the most inspirational person I've ever encountered or read about anyway, because I never actually met him, was Viktor Frankl. He survived the absolute horrors and tragedies of the death camps and came out a powerful and incredibly powerful teacher. And to me, that was absolutely awe-inspiring and amazing. I found many other people. A man named James Holman, who in the First World War became blinded in a military conflict situation. The government wanted to put him into an institution. He refused, fled to Scotland, and became the first guy to circumnavigate the globe, blind. And that was in 1918, long before the advent of the white cane or any technological devices whatsoever. Then there were two brothers who inspired me. The first one, Geoffrey Hilton Barber, who was born in Rhodesia, moved to Durban in their conflict, became blind, then built a yacht by feel. It didn't sink, so he sailed it solo to Australia using speech output on his wall for navigation. His brother, Miles Hilton Barber, at the age of 57, totally blind, flew a microlight from Heathrow to Australia using speech output. Both set world records, incredible feats. And what these people have shown me is the only limitations and the only thing preventing us from living the lives we want to live and the lives we are destined to live are the limitations we place on ourselves and which come from that space in between our ears and our hearts. If it was not for me becoming blind, I would not have met the incredibly wonderful people, or sorry, refocused, because becoming blind induced me to refocus where I pay attention. And I've met incredibly wonderful people, beautiful people, and at times in places I least expected. Yeah, then last year in 2023, my sister and brother-in-law came out from the UK, and they said it was just for my mum's birthday. But they got my mum to sign full power of attorney over to them. And I found this out about a week after they'd returned to the UK. So I contacted them and asked them, like, what is this all about? Why didn't you even inform me? And it was literally met with arrogance and intentional attempts at deceit. I can't change it. It's just the way they are. And yeah, There's a saying which to me is absolutely true. One doesn't have to understand the actions of others, and it's a useless, senseless waste of time and energy trying to understand it, but be grateful for knowing and learning who the person truly is. And that makes absolute sense to me. Yeah, I must say I am so fortunate to have wonderful trainers who've shown me and taught me so much. Logotherapy has had the impact on my life, which is greatly beneficial to me, and it's overflowed into many other people, well, the people around me's lives. In my training for counseling, the first person I counseled was a lady who's in a wheelchair and is visually impaired, and her family, from a place of love, have done everything for her. This lady's in her 40s and was, when I met her, completely dependent on everyone for everything. And it was basically because she was always told, you cannot because, you shouldn't do this because, and I'll do this for you. And so she never did anything for herself. And through the counseling, she started to realize her own value as a human being, does incredible things for herself, and is even engaged to get married. It's a complete turnaround of somebody in a year and a half. Somebody who was merely existing to somebody who's actually living life. And that is an overflowing impact that logotherapy has had on me, which is helping other people. And it's incredible. So I'm blessed with wonderful trainers. And that is the impact logotherapy has had on my life. Hence the name of my speech, Logoimpact, which comes from ChatGPT, by the way, because I was thinking, well, what am I going to call this? So it's put in my search criteria, and that's the name that came up. Thank you.
Taria, we can't hear you.
Yeah, I said there's so much we can comment on, but I first want to hear comments from others, and let's go into the wonderful depths of Grant's discoveries that about who we really are and can be, and it is so, so inspirational. But let's hear some other comments first.
I just want to say thank you, Grant, for just showing vulnerability in such a magnificent, overcoming way. Yes, I applaud you and thank you for that.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Oh. I love your remarks, Sonia. Vulnerability that we overcome in such a victorious way. Maybe I should just take up some points and it will stimulate your thoughts, and we must then go deeper into what I've observed. But just look at that. What Marilyn was saying, we can hardly imagine ourselves in the shoes of others that have had a specific traumatic experience, but we can observe them and deeply learn from them. And just think of how Grant described his life before the trauma. You know, there were lots of things that he did. It was so magnificent what he could do, how he was out in nature. He had everything, in a sense, going for him. And then something that seemed to totally nullify what he was. You know, just like Frankel said, it's like you have to draw a line through your previous existence when you're faced with such a trauma that kind of wipes out everything that was meaningful in your life. And it is like a rediscovery process that has to happen from that trauma onwards. And this was so true of Grant. Look at what happened, because this is it, you know, and we come to logotherapy as provoking the freedom of choice. But Grant came to that himself. He realized, look, I've got a choice. I can either stay in this darkness, totally thrown down by it, totally incapacitated from everything I could do before, or I can reach out and reconnect myself to life. That's exactly what Frankel did, wasn't it? After the shock of his entry into Auschwitz. It was rediscovering the meanings that were there in his life before, but now they came out in such greater depth and richness. And this is what happened to Grant too, that, you know, he was working his way towards, with a new positive orientation, that he wasn't going to remain a victim, which is what he challenges his clients to do. And look at the dramatic transformation of that woman who was lost in her dependency, letting everyone do everything for her. That was the choice. He could have had been somebody that was totally dependent on others. But where is his inherent dignity and freedom of being? And, you know, this is the most wonderful thing, that it's not, the focus is not on our limitations, on the bad things that happen to us, to throw us onto negativity and despair and depression, but to let that limitation serve you, to from that limitation, from that suffering, bring forth such hidden pearls of meaning. It's a rediscovery of meaning in such a magnificent way. Then look how Grant got inspired by blind role models, people who have risen to great heights despite their blindness. Then like he said, he realized it's not whether we have limitations. It's not whether we have trauma or not. It's not whether we have a disability, but it is what we do with that, how we see it, how we relate to it. In fact, this brings what Frankel said, that death is there to provoke us to life, to not give in. The tormenting things that happen to us is to provoke the defiant power of the human spirit to rise above the limitations and change them completely to something magnificent, which is what exactly what Frankel did and what Grant did himself, which is really the human path, isn't it? Because he said, he realized we place the limitations on ourselves. Not that we have limitations, but that we read the limitations in a negative way instead of seeing it as a challenge to self-transcend and to change that adversity into a most magnificent spiritual achievement and victory. Wow, and look at even a further depth and wisdom that, and this is another stage of our growth, it's not just overcoming our own limitations victoriously. It is what we do to those who cause the trauma. Even, an accident is like a fate that happened to you, right? When he discovered that his family had sold everything because he couldn't see what they were doing, so they stole, in a sense, stole his life and sold it away. And with the same kind of deceit that he experienced later with his sister, his other family members. And so, the final challenge we have is, what do we do with the people that cause that suffering? By what? By using our weaknesses, our vulnerabilities, our sensitivities to actually pull us down and to make us victims. And this is really the face of evil. That it's like a story of Amalek that pursued the children of Israel through the wilderness, but attacked the ones that were lagging behind, the weak ones. It's like the creation story where God pronounced a judgment on evil and said, yes, you will bite at the heel of trying to restrain the growth of people to human greatness. You snap at the heel, but they will tread on you and crush your head. This is the final victory that I even see personified in Grant's life, that he, instead of fighting that evil in a belligerent, ugly and aggressive and a life is unfair way with counter anger, he just simply transcended it by growing, by becoming what he could be. And that is the defeat of the enemy that tries to restrain and bite at our heel, that we can crush it because it hasn't an entry into our minds to make us feel like victims. So what I love what you said, that you now have, through logotherapy, an overflowing impact on the lives of others. It really is like Psalm 23. You prepare a table for me in the presence of my enemies, which is my own self-doubts or the attacks that come from outside to make me feel a nothing and a nobody. And I sit in the presence of my enemies and a table that is prepared for me, and my cup spills over. That's that overflowing impact on the lives of others if we can go through this journey that Grant exemplified for us tonight. So, thank you, Grant. I've never seen your life in such perspective as I do now, and I'm awed. Thank you.
Thank you, Cheria.
Grant, I'd like to ask Grant a question, if that's okay. Hi, Grant, it's Mark.
Hi, Mark.
Dr. Shan said something just now, and Dr. Shan, I'm not challenging you on this at all, but it's interesting that what you said. You said that that Grant saw people who had achieved greatness in spite of their blindness, and I find very often we talk about people achieving great things in spite of challenges, but is the defiance of the human spirit not about achieving because of? So,
Yeah,
Grant, the question
exactly.
that I have is, would you
Thank
have
you for
achieved
that.
what you have in life if you had not been? Have you become the man you are, the incredible man you are, because of your blindness? Had you not become, been sent this suffering, would you have become the man you are? It's just something that I find so often with people, who face really great suffering, is that they become great because of the suffering, because of the challenge, rather than in spite of it. Yeah, I know it's
Oh,
semantics,
absolutely,
but
Mark. Thank you for that remark, because that's it. And that brings out the mystery, that the meaning of suffering, that we see suffering in a different light, not as a punishment, but as a challenge, as a commission to overcome it. Thank you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I see it as well. Any form of suffering in its own regard is, if depending on how you view it and how you look at it, and if you search for the meaning and the positive which is in everything, it can become a tool in your arsenal, for want of a better terminology. To be honest with you, I wouldn't have even contemplated the things that I get up to nowadays had I not become blind. So without becoming blind, I wouldn't be here this evening. I can guarantee you that.
Well, yeah, you know, Grant, when you talked about that choice, again and again, I'm always amazed at how we don't fully believe we have freedom of choice. You know, and at that moment you said, well, I could just stay here in this place of feeling sorry for myself, or you could make something wonderful with my life. And, you know, and I thought about those people in my life also who have taken advantage of my weaknesses, and how all I need to do is this little switch, just like it's my choice. That's all it is.
It literally is. And to be honest with you, when I was in that situation, I just knew I couldn't stay where I was. So my choice was to do something, achieve something, and get myself into a better place. And it was only by doing that I got myself out. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah.
Ron, to me, what springs to mind is even in the darkest moments, we have the ability to illuminate our inner world, but you chose to be the light to your own being. Yes, you might have lost your sight, but your spirit vision, that enhanced, and you are sharing it with such kindness, and you identify exactly who you are, your resilience, your purpose, your rediscovery. It's such an inspiration to see how you're uplifting others, and I commend you on that. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
Well, I love what you also, Irene, that's wonderful. The inner sight that we gain, which is really what we need to gain. That's why, you know, listening is so important. What is the situation saying to me? And when you realize, you see what you have to do. You know, it's not a physical sight, it's a spiritual sight, which you highlighted that happened to Grant in such a sharp and discerning way. It's an inner sight. He sees, even though he can't see. Isn't that wonderful? And what Grant said, that you know, almost as if to say there wasn't a choice, is also very profound, because what can we do if we're at rock bottom? What can we do if we're totally cornered? You know, we either can stay there, but it's intolerable. It's intolerable. And people who stay there too long commit suicide because it's intolerable. And so there was only one choice to make, and that was not to stay there. Yeah. That's why so often when we're faced with a great change in my life came when I was faced to death, you know, to the death of my father, when such a finality. It was such a closed door. I had, you know, in order to make sense of it, I had to open that door myself. and not stay there in a state of shock, grief, and bereavement. Yeah.
Grant, this is Coral.
Yes, Carol.
To underline what Sonia said, thank you for sharing and for being vulnerable for us tonight. What I found very interesting was the first thing you chose to do when you decided you weren't going to stay stuck. The first thing you decided to do was to find a new way of communicating. So you did that computer course. And for me, it's all about connections and connecting to people, places, things, and ideas. So I commend you on that choice, because that certainly opened the doors to further connections and communications. It gave you the avenue that you'd lost of being able to actually get in touch and to be heard and to make your presence known. So well done on that, Grant, and thanks for sharing.
Thank you.
Sorry, Grant, it's Mark again. Can I ask you another question? I'm always
sure.
fascinated because so few people, when you say logotherapy, so few people know what it is. And I'm always fascinated by how all of us who are sitting here and everybody's involved with logotherapy, how we discovered it, how we were brought to it. And I'm not sure if I missed something in your talk, but what was the bridge that connected you from what you had gone through in your life to bringing you to logotherapy and the practice of the study of it and the practice of it as a tool for creating meaning and in fact creating a completely new life for yourself?
Mark, it actually links back to the first question you asked me. Had I not become blind, I would have not contemplated an organization like Toastmasters. And it was through Toastmasters that I encountered Viktor Frankl in his works. And that intrigued me. And that's what induced me to read Man's Search of Meaning. And that is when I came to the realization that there is something incredible in this. Oh, I want to learn more. And it is only through doing that and actually learning some of the lessons which became evident through my reading of his work that I started thinking, wow, I want more. And that's how I ended up contacting the Viktor Frankl Institute. And without becoming blind, I would not have looked anywhere near this route. I was happy where I was. I hope that makes sense.
It does, absolutely. And I think it's interesting for me because it almost feels like everybody who finds logotherapy discovers that there's such a wonderful sequence of events which talks to a kind of spiritual attraction to logotherapy, not just something that it comes across our path for a reason. I think that it's I know for myself and everybody else I talk to who is engaged in the practice of logotherapy in whatever way, there's an extraordinary story to tell of how they discovered it, how it came into all of our lives. And I think it's maybe one of the things that connects us as a community is this kind of spiritual connection with the thing that we decided to study, which was not necessarily an analytical or intellectual choice, but something beyond that. I've always felt that.
I just wanted to say something. My name is Diana, and it feels like there's something about the superhuman here, like superhuman or supernatural. Like, it's like what you did was superhuman, and there is more evidence out there that this superhuman thing can happen to people. They can achieve a level of superhumanness, but I hope you know how I mean that, it's I don't know, I just wanted to take note of that, because it seems like even just in stories and stuff, the superhuman, like the hero, this heroic, person often has this thing that they had to overcome in order to have this, then to have transcended, and I feel like it's almost like a study of the superhuman, like, or something, here's an impossible situation. What are you going to do with it? It's impossible. Like, everybody, like, I don't know. I would, if you said that you were blind and you just let people do everything for you, I wouldn't have any judgment, nothing. Like, be like, yeah, that's human, man. Like, but then, yeah, there's something about this superhuman or supernatural thing that you achieve that is just so inspiring. Like, it's just akin to what Viktor Frankl did. Like, it's like, wow, you could do that. You took that situation and you made it like that. It's so, I know, I'm just sort of repeating myself, but I don't know. Way to go. I guess I don't know. Like,
beautiful, Diana, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
I see that Pan said our transcendent spirit. We must recognize that the spirit that's been breathed into us, our comprehension is connected to a higher level. And it's as if that suffering, that shock is just like breaking a wall. It breaks the ordinary and it opens the way for the extraordinary. We rise to heights. Like Frankl said, suffering gives us the opportunity to rise to the highest of moral values, to the greatest of heights. Because what has happened, we actually broke through into the dimension of the superhuman. In other words, and that's you're so right. We become spiritual heroes because we seem to be doing the impossible in overcoming what you said. You don't judge anybody for feeling dependent upon others and feeling depressed about. That's kind of human. But it's like, wow, this transcendence, this ability that actually is my will, not just to meaning, but to ultimate meaning, to break open to a connection with the suprahuman, that makes me great, that makes me into the image of something far more than just the ordinary humdrum. And, and just like everybody else, then you become uniquely unlike anybody else. Yeah.
Yeah, Diana, that gave me a vision of Samson when they thought he was defeated, and even in his blindness, he still left the whole place defeated because of his trust and his strength and his guidance. Even in his blindness, he held on to that. And that's sort of how the vision that came to me, just to confirm that you maybe did see right. That strength is a godly strength from much higher, like Taraya is saying. Well done, Grant. You defeated all your Philistines.
Well, yes, look at that. That's a fantastic analogy of Samson. And thank you for bringing it, Irene. Because, he was cheated by Delilah, wasn't he? He was robbed of his strength, and it was a conniving to somehow just restrain this man's strength. But what happened? He brought the whole evil system crashing down by his heroism of having a strength beyond his blindness and beyond what has happened to him. Yes, wonderful. I love that analogy.
and
Hello
then
to everyone.
yeah. No, go ahead.
Ladies first.
Oh, I was just gonna say, and then it's like that person that's superhuman or suprahuman acts as a beacon for everybody else of what is possible, and thus raises the what's the word? Raises the bar. What's that?
Mhm.
Oh, raises the consciousness. It acts as a pillar, a beacon for all of those who are coming underneath. Like I'm seeing it as it's a brilliant system. If you can do that, Samson, if you can do that, Grant, if you can do that, it creates a blueprint, like an impossible blueprint, like a miracle, a blueprint of how to perform a miracle almost, but it seems when we're talking, what I'm really getting is that the will, capital W will, is the thing that is the magic ingredient that's there. Like it seems like that is really, if without that, none of that happens, or something.
Absolutely.
Hello to everyone, if I can say. First of all, I would like to thank Grant and Dr. Chantal. This is very honest and instructive testimony about what logotherapy can provide us. My experience is that people often do not think about the meaning of life and do not try to achieve greatness until they find themselves in some border or borderline situation, like experience of near death or something like that, invalidity or something like that. That situation that calls into the question the functioning of the entire previous system. But I believe that each of us can find meaning and achieve greatness. One could say only the sky is limit. And in the Grant case, and in the many other cases, sometimes physical blindness opens spiritual eyes.
Yeah.
Well, you say it so beautifully, that suffering is like a wake-up call, isn't it? A wake-up call. I said, what are you doing here? Adam, where are you? What are you doing with your life? Wake up. And it's that kind of a challenging, confronting situation. And this is the confronting nature of logotherapy, because we're really saying to our clients, where are you hiding? And why? You can change your situation in an instant by just a change in orientation and lifting your head, so to speak, like Diana was saying, and see from a higher perspective and get some perspective. Right, beautiful.
Grant, it's Sonia again. Just a question. This journey, I'm going to make a comment and then put a question mark behind it. This journey of the old Grant maybe and the new Grant that I can hear the old Grant is sort of like, it's as if you can't go back to that old Grant. You're moving forward, if I listen to your answers, what you say about the previous life. But this journey of a new seeing of life, how long is it? How long are you on this journey? For example, when did your blindness start, and where are you now? How many weeks, months, years?
To be honest with you, when I became blind, it literally kicked me off the hamster wheel of life. And that was the start of my new perceptions of the journey that I'm on. One of the things, okay, this might sound a bit odd, but that I'm grateful for is that I was induced to question my own morals and values. And what is this really all about? And it brought me to the realization that I was actually chasing something of no value. And for the last 2.5, 3 years, I found such incredible joy. It's been absolutely amazingly incredible. That's all I can say.
Thank you. Thank you, Grant.
Grant, how many years ago did the accident actually happen?
In 2018, almost 6 years ago.
6 years ago. Wonderful. Wonderful.
It sounds like Grant, if I understood correctly, traded off something of a lower vibration for something of a higher vibration, but he didn't even know that it was lower. He didn't get to know that until he transcended. And then it's like, oh man, I would never go back. I would not go back. But it seems, it's just so beautiful of a story. I don't.
It is.
For an analogy of that, it's almost like a severe hailstorm, which strips plants of their foliage and bark and everything. And initially, people think, wow, my garden's been destroyed. But if you have a look at how it grows back, it's incredible.
Wow.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
Mm.
Ron,
There's
how do
another.
you sorry.
No, go ahead, Irene.
Ron, how do you maintain a positive outlook despite challenges that you might still have to face in your daily living? I mean, 6 years versus 40 odd years that you did see. How do you maintain that positive outlook?
My positive outlook comes from, as I was speaking earlier on about the overflow, it reciprocates back to me. And the more I give, the more I get. And that just prods me on more and more and more.
You can really grant, you have not just, you haven't even spoken of all the things that you have brought about, and the work that you are doing among the blind. It's incredible. It's like Grant said, it's an overflowing. Once you plugged into, like what Diana said, that higher dimension, then life flows. You're so inspired and so connected to life. It's like you have to reach out. It's just now part of your being in wanting to give and wanting to serve and wanting to be there for others. And the more that you do that, you get this wonderful replenishing reciprocation from people who are helped. It's a spiraling process, higher and higher. Yeah.
It almost feels as if he entered another echelons of another strata, like almost like grace, or something, which is reminding me I'm just going to say really quickly, I had a dream one time where, like, how to say it, life was really giving me a hard time, and I was feeling really sick, and I was saying to life, please, mercy, mercy. And life said to me, this is mercy. This is mercy. What you're getting right now, this is actual mercy. And I remember really contemplating that a long time, like, what? But then I see from what Grant is saying that that it could still be a way of life being showing you mercy by saying, we know that I know what you're made of, and I know what you're capable of, and I know what you can do. And so here's this hard thing, and I know you think you can't surpass it. You think you can't, but like life is already invested in you. And I don't know if that sounds weird to say it that way, but life knows what you're capable of, and that mercy isn't just having an easy time, like where people will take care of you if you're blind. That could be seen as mercy, but also people not taking care of you when you're blind could also be mercy to get you to where life believes you could be, or where maybe the soul knows you can be, or where the soul wishes to be.
Yeah, Diana, I don't want to put you on the spot, but at the same time, I want to ask, is that going to change your life now?
Grant,
or how does that process, how do you see that process is working for you?
that process of, oh
Of,
yeah,
of being
this, but-
superhuman, of breaking
Oh.
through your.
right. This is where your words come back to you, and where a good teacher sends your words back to you, right? Yeah. Humana, humana. Is there anyone else who wants to say anything? Yes, duly noted. Like,
No, I think it will. I mean, for all of us, I think I mean, I just know for myself that whenever I participate in a logotherapy meeting, the same words are used, the same expressions, and yet it's not the words that matter. It's something so much deeper that those words are expressing. And then somehow each time it goes a little deeper into me and changes me.
yeah. And
Oh, absolutely. What a wonderful, fantastic revelation, Diana. Who would think of suffering as merciful? But my word, if you are on the wrong path, isn't it tremendously merciful that you are shocked into going in a right path, you know? Or if you are very wrong in your thinking, that if you are corrected, isn't that a merciful thing? You know, I mean, it sounds terrible. I was in the wrong, but wow, thank God that we can be shown that we are in the wrong, or that we are in a wrong space. That is mercy. What a wonderful idea, Diana. True, suffering is merciful.
I think it's also
There's suffering and suffering. You know, I always distinguish between the two. There is suffering that is really the result of something we bring onto our own head if we do not change. But even there, suffering remains an instigator for change, even there. Yeah. Oh.
Well, Grant, from my side, even in your darkness, your light is shining so bright on us, and I really learned a lot tonight. Thank you so much for letting your light shine out of your darkness. Much appreciated.
Thank you.
I just wanted, I don't know if anybody had read the book of a blind French resistant worker during the Second World War, where he worked for the Underground. Why? He called his book "And Let There Be Light," and he wrote that as he also had an accident at when he was an 8-year-old child. But his blindness, he said, was such a blessing because not being duped by what he was seeing and being influenced by the outward appearance of things, he had to intuit what was happening to him. He had to feel it. He had to, it was an inner process of having to understand, which then became so sharp, because he wasn't fooled by ordinary sight. And his blindness brought this incredible gift that made him such an asset in the underground resistant movements, because he could immediately sense when he was in the presence of somebody who they were, whether they could be trusted or whether they were a spy or a traitor. He had immensely a refined perception, inner perception, a feeling of who this person is, picking it up, and which is an incredible gift that his blindness gave him. This kind of inner intuitive skill and artistry. Yeah.
My honest opinion with that, Sherry, is we are all capable of it. It was a question I asked, I think it was a year or two ago, when we had that one webinar with Mika in Canada. And I asked the question, can you feel if you're busy counseling somebody and they switch off? And he said, I'm being intrusive. I shouldn't be doing that. But my honest opinion is we're all capable of it. It's what we concentrate on.
Yes, exactly. We all have to develop inner sight. And it, you know, conscience is very intuitive. It reads meaning. It perceives meaning behind an outward event. And it is an inner skill. It's a spiritual skill. It's not a physical skill. It's a spiritual skill that, like you say, we can all have. And in fact, what we are all meant to have. Yeah, yeah.
I would even add that not only do we have this spiritual skill, but we all have this inbuilt hero within us, and we only have to give birth to this hero. Unfortunately, it is only when life puts us with the back to the wall that when we don't have a choice, then we let it be born. But actually, we do have this inner hero in us. This is the myth of the birth of the hero that is very well known. And about this moment of choice that you, Grant, talked about, and Batya commented about it, I know that people who have been traumatized like you with different stories, life stories like this, first want to have their old life back. Not that you could have your sight back, but people want to have their old life back, but only later they discover that actually what is there for them by going forward and leaping to the unknown and leaping to self-transcendence is so much more that they are not sorry anymore for the trauma that happened. And what comes to my mind is a beautiful sentence that maybe Batya can translate to me, for me. יצאתי לחפש אתונות ומצאתי מלוכה. Can you translate that, Batya?
I was looking for mules and I found rest. I'm not sure I understand it either. Atonot?
כן, אתונות. יצאתי לחפש אתונות ומצאתי מלוכה.
Like an atone, like a horse?
No, cows.
Cows.
But I found a kingdom. I found kingdom. Like that means, I think it's from the Bible somewhere. And I heard it from the story of Yoram Eshet, if you remember, Teria, who was injured in the Yom Kippur War and lost his brain completely. And he wanted his life, a former life back. But then he said, I suddenly met myself when I started my journey, and then I would never want back my old life. And I think this is what Grant is telling us in this life story that I was so awed by hearing it.
It's like he went through an initiation.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
Beautiful. Yes, it is an initiation process. It's a rebirth, transformational process. You wake up to what Dida was saying, that was actually the hero within, the potential that has been put there and waiting to be realized, you know. I was thinking of this Anthony Robbins, a great motivational speaker of America. He wrote the book, The Giant Within, Awakening the Giant Within.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, beautiful.
And there is this book, very well known, The Myth of the Birth of the Hero, that somehow he starts in an ordinary life, but somehow he has to start to embark on a journey, and then he has all kinds of tests from God on the way until he lets this hero be born.
Exactly. Exactly.
And this can be the story of each and every one of us.
Yes, indeed. Okay, it's been a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful evening. Thank you, Grant. We've really touched on so many things that are immensely meaningful to all of us and very inspiring, and especially as logotherapists or logotherapists in training. Wow, it's inspirational in how our own journey can reach the point of this, what you called the overflowing impact, that it just begins to spill over, and it is then a process that is unstoppable. Once this fountain has been opened up, it's a fountain. It keeps on bubbling up. It is no longer hidden and trampled underfoot. Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you, everyone. Carl?
Thank you, everyone.